Millennium Force opened in the year 2000 at Cedar Point and has turned into one of the most recognizable roller coasters of all time. When Millennium opened, it was the first roller coaster to ever top 300 feet in height. Millennium Force has since won countless golden ticket awards for Best Steel Roller Coaster, and for good reason. In fact, the only thing more iconic at Cedar Point is Millennium's station music. Without further ado, this is my review of Millennium Force at Cedar Point. The trains. Millennium Force uses Intamin's Mega Coaster trains. These feature the Intamin T-bar restraint and a seatbelt. The T-bars are known for being very comfortable and allow plenty of room for airtime. I just love how open Millennium Force trains are, and I really don't think the seatbelt restricts the airtime at all. I also just really love the look of Millennium's trains. I don't know what it is about them, but they just look really cool. I also find it kind of funny that some people call the yellow train the banana train. Just the fact that one of the trains has a little nickname sort of speaks to how legendary the ride has become over the years. Smoothness. Many say that Millennium is glass smooth, but I would have to disagree. There is a noticeable shuffle in some of the valleys. Now, the shuffle wasn't to a point where I believe it really detracted from the ride experience. It was sort of just something I noticed while on ride. I think it may have been because I was in a wheel seat, but I usually don't hear that affecting steel roller coasters, like Millennium. I was also near the back of the train, which I've heard can affect smoothness on other roller coasters, but I'm not really sure. Overall, the smoothness of Millennium is the only thing that I would call inherently bad about the ride experience. Speaking of the ride experience, once you board one of Millennium's 3 trains, the station music builds to a crescendo, and a robotic voice will say something along the lines of "greatest thrill ride ever." On this note, Millennium charges, and I mean charges, up the 310-foot lift hill. Because this ascent is made via a cable lift, it is very swift. But it still allows you a lot of time to take in the amazing view from the top. If you sit on the left seat of the train, you get a great view of Lake Erie. And if you sit on the right seat of the train, you get a great view of the park, as you pretty much tower over most of Cedar Point. After a very short ascent, Millennium charges down the 300-foot drop, which gives fantastic sustained floater airtime. While I prefer drops that offer more intense airtime, like the drop on Steel Vengeance, the sheer length of the drop on Millennium is unmatched in the park, outside of Top Thrill 2. Then, Millennium heads into a huge overbank turn, giving sustained positive Gs. Millennium then turns to the left and heads through the first of 2 tunnels. As you come out of that tunnel, you head into what I believe is the second tallest moment of the ride, an absolutely massive airtime hill that gives some of the most sustained floater air I've ever experienced. Then comes a 300-degree helix, which has some fun forces, but really just acts as a way to accentuate the speed that the ride is carrying at that point. Then, Millennium charges into another overbank turn, which has some positive Gs, but definitely less than the first. After a turn to the right, Millennium then charges into another airtime hill that goes right next to the first. This airtime hill has less sustained, but slightly more powerful airtime than the first. Millennium then turns to the left through another tunnel that helps bring the ride back to the station. After this comes the most abrupt moment of airtime, the speed hill, which also served as a great photo op. Millennium then turns to the left and heads into one of the more famous points of the ride, which is ironically the straight track. And this straight track actually serves as a great way to show the heart lining that the ride has. Finally, Millennium goes through the last overbank turn and cruises into the break ground, which serves as an amazing crowd interaction point. That ends your 6,590-foot long journey on the most legendary ride at Cedar Point. Final thoughts. Millennium Force is pure fun and does exactly what it's meant to do. Be a speed demon that the masses can enjoy. To the people calling it Millennium Forceless, well, I can sort of see where you're coming from. Millennium is not really meant to overdo on forces. And I'd actually argue that Millennium pulls some fun positive and negative Gs. While it isn't my favorite at Cedar Point, I can totally see how someone would put Millennium at that spot. While newer and more high-tech rides have opened since, Millennium still remains very popular, and is a great thrill ride for the young thrill seekers as it only has a 48-inch height requirement. Overall, Millennium Force is a legendary ride at a legendary park. And while some may like to hate on it and call it overrated, I simply don't think they get the point. Millennium is a pure fun ride, and it's sure to put a huge smile on your face every time you ride. What do you think of Millennium Force? Tell me in the comments below. See you next time, and bye.